Hi all. Over the break, I'd like you to revisit your introduction posts, look at the comments that others have included and that I've made, and respond to those comments. As of now, you will have posted twice to the blog, fundamentally. You're posting your revised posts on Anthropocene, the Human Epoch, the film we watched, but also your introduction post. And I'd like to use the comments area of these posts to carry on conversations. So please do respond, and I'm going to give you a few pointers that pertain to the best way, to create and write content online. I've chosen more or less by random Lily Yao's post to respond to. You can go ahead and watch it if you haven't. Lily is joining us from her bedroom in Virginia, and talks about what it's like to be kind of stuck inside and have to work at home. And Grant here responds a couple of times. Now he's updated his profile, so it would say Grant instead of GAC336. And I've joined the conversation down here in response to Russell's comment, where he wonders about other species experiencing anything like pandemics. I'm going to use this response of mine to point out a couple of things that I'd like you to do in your responses moving forward. The first thing is something you guys are already doing a great job of, which is, responding clearly to someone in this chain, right? You can respond to multiple people, of course, and try to tie together several threads that several people have been picking up in their comments. And I do a couple of other things here. So in this, Russell's wondering about other animals. I bring up bats as a social animal that are currently suffering a kind of pandemic of their own in the Americas, something called white nose syndrome. Now, we're going to start linking more conscientiously in posts and in comments. When you make a reference to something that requires some kind of source, or that you want to substantiate by providing evidence for, create a link. So here, I link to this informational page on white nose syndrome that tells us that bats are dying in millions to the point where there are regional extinctions of some bat species. And I'm tying this into the context of this conversation here with Russell and ultimately Lily. It gives me an opportunity to talk about viruses and what we think we know about their origins and their age. The indication that being that viruses are a very ancient form of, well, some say they're life, some say they're not, because they require a host to kind of activate. They don't live on their own, in a sense. So the question of whether they're life or not is open. But they're bound up in life, and they change life, as we know, from the coronavirus pandemic, among other things. And this is all interesting, too, ultimately in the context of our current viewing of Genesis 2.0, where we see people excavating mammoth tusks from a frozen permafrost that's also releasing ancient viruses into our contemporary world. And I could have gone on here to note, I suppose, that much of the synthetic biology that is the subject of Genesis 2.0 also arises out of virology and the other studies of how DNA and RNA work to generate life, and how they can also work to create in host bodies disease, whether exogenously from the outside, a virus coming inside and causing, invading a cell and causing things to go wrong for the body, the host body, or sometimes by way of other mutations in the genetic code that might be inherited and have roots far in the past, but also might be environmental in the case of, say, chemicals that are non-organic, pollutants that cause mutations in the genetic code. Anyway, this isn't a science class, and Lily's post is really about like being stuck inside, but I think you can see how conversations can arise out of these interactions online that can lead in all sorts of interesting ways back into our conversation about the question of the Anthropocene. So to recap, I want you guys to engage with one another, go back, engage with the people who posted on your comment. I'll write this up and give you some more details about specifically what to do. But I'd also like you to start linking in the comments as well as in your primary posts. And when you link in comments, it's a little bit of a pain, but it's good practice for digital literacy. I'll show you what I mean. You actually have to hand code, unfortunately, so you're going to have to put in these little bits of code to link to outside sources. I'll give you a tutorial video that you can watch, and it's easy to pick that code up anywhere from online. Okay, that's all I've got for you now. I will join you later in conversation. Bye-bye.